What's up, you guys? Teddy Striker here, and in this video, I want to talk about Jon Jones because he's headlining UFC 295 versus Stipe Miocic, and I'm going to talk about that fight more and more as we get closer to the fight week. And I'll have a detailed prediction on who I think is going to win and how I think the underdog could win that fight. But let's get back to Jon Jones because, earlier this year, he was talking about, obviously he fought Cirogan in March, then he was supposed to come back in July. It made sense. He didn't take any damage versus Cirogan. And, it would be nice. It would have been nice to see an active Jon Jones because we didn't see him for 3 years. But regardless, we're still seeing him one more time this year. And it's kind of being built as the greatest heavyweight of all time versus the greatest of all time or the greatest light heavyweight of all time. And it kind of seems like win or lose for both fighters, they could potentially both be retiring. For Stipe, I know he's been saying that after every fight he's thought about retiring or something similar to that. And Jon Jones, obviously, he said that, it would be perfect for him to end his career off in New York. If I'm not mistaken, it's because he was born in New York and then moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I could be wrong, but he definitely said that he wants to retire. And he said that it would be the perfect way to retire, beating the greatest heavyweight of all time in New York. And, it's really crazy to actually say that because Jon Jones, for me, he was the first MMA fighter I knew. I'm pretty sure he's like that for a lot of people. Obviously, a lot of, younger people who, started watching MMA, in the last couple years, maybe within the last 10 years or so, or maybe 10 years or less, for people who've been watching even longer than 10 years, and they probably were exposed to other fighters before they found out about Jon Jones. But when I think about Jon Jones, I really think about a legend, and that word gets thrown around a lot nowadays, people be calling Neo Magny legend and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, let's just relax for a second. Not everybody is a legend. Otherwise, that word just becomes ruined, like most words nowadays. But Jon Jones is really a true living legend, and the fact that we're witnessing him right now, it's really crazy, and it's something that we're gonna all miss once he's gone. Obviously, a lot of people don't like him because of what he's done outside the cage. He's done some terrible things, and I'm not gonna defend that ever. But I'm just talking about Jon Jones, a fighter, and he even though he did fail a few drug tests, in my opinion, he could have still had the same results without the performance-enhancing drugs. But it sucks because it seems like he used it based on just wanting to win so bad, I think. Because he just seems like a super competitive type of guy. And, I'm not trying to make it seem I'm not trying to defend it or anything. I'm just trying to figure out why he would do something like that. Because I think he could have had the same results without, I think he could have still KO'd DC with a head kick. He doesn't need, EPO for better cardio, or maybe he does. What if Jon Jones, his whole career, he's been on EPO, and without it, he would be, getting gassed out in the second round. It'd be crazy, but regardless, outside of that, the stereo talk, his skills and his creativity is unmatched in the cage. The way he moves, it's just incredible to see, and it's kind of weird to think that he's going to retire because it's when you think of the UFC, you think of Jon Jones, Conor McGregor, and Conor, obviously, he's still, technically fighting, he's going to fight Michael Chandler, he's still involved in the sport, but he hasn't even talked about retiring yet. But Jon Jones has talked about it, and it makes sense. He's been in the UFC since, I think, 2008. So that's a long time, 15 years to be in the UFC, just having fights, becoming the youngest champion in the history of the sport. And, we look at a guy like Cirogan and we think, wow, he's only been training MMA for 4 years and he's in the UFC. Well, Jon Jones, he had only been training MMA for 4 months, and then he got into the UFC. How crazy is that? I know the level of competition probably wasn't as high back then, but still, that is still an incredible feat that Jon Jones has. He's just a once in a lifetime talent. Like, he's not a guy that has like knockout power or anything. And that's the only thing. Like, if he did, then he would literally be the perfect fighter. But he doesn't, and that's okay. Like, he's a technician. He can still knock you out, of course. Like, he's very dangerous. Got flying knees, got head kicks, got elbows. He's got a lot of high damaging attacks, but yeah, he doesn't have that one punch knockout with his hands. But either way, yeah, like, it's gonna be weird seeing the UFC without Jon Jones. I think that he definitely changed the game for sure. Like, in terms of how to dominate and how to be well rounded and just throwing things out there and seeing what lands and challenging himself, because a lot of fighters tend to have a certain style that will work well against an opponent. Like, for example, Bilal Muhammad versus Wonderboy. Bilal Muhammad had some grappling. Wonderboy is really good on the feet, but he has some serious holes on the ground. So Bilal Muhammad, like, he just took him down, beat him up. What made Jon Jones special is that there's certain opponents like Glover Teixeira where he would go in there and beat them at their own game. Like, Glover Teixeira was really good in the pocket with his boxing. Like, he was a boxer and a jiu-jitsu practitioner. And Jon Jones just blasted him with elbows over and over, cut his face up, tore his shoulder up. Like, he just beat him in the clinch. And that's something that he did, like, for certain opponents. He would beat them at their own game. That just takes a certain level of talent and confidence that I wish we could see more and more, to see fighters challenge themselves and just, exceed what's expected of them. We all know you can take him down, but what if you beat him on the feet? It's going to be impressive, but this is all just to say that Jon Jones is really the greatest of all time. And the fact that he's going to retire is going to leave a hole in MMA for sure. Like, he could potentially retire completely undefeated, but Stipe Miocic is still being underestimated. But personally, right now, I think that he is going to win that fight and then retire.